In this video I'm gonna show you how you can play Silksong with a 3-player motion controller. It's such an insane and fun experience, and if you have friends to play it with, it's also a really great way to lose them. So let's get into it. Over here you have footage from my last Silksong video, and in this part, if you watch the video, you know that I was absolutely exhausted from playing Silksong this way. You can see that there's a camera over here, and the camera is basically capturing footage in real time of what's happening, and it's sending it directly to my laptop over here. What the camera is seeing is this rectangle over here, and then what I programmed was these small green rectangles, and as you probably noticed, all of us have this green cloth in our arms and in our legs, and basically my script is constantly checking if there is a certain amount of these green pixels inside those rectangles. The thing is that those rectangles are also binded to specific keys on the keyboard, so if those green pixels were to enter the rectangle, it would be the same as you clicking a certain key on the keyboard. It would be literally the same. There's of course some code acting behind all of this, and I'll share the link for a GitHub page in the video description. To run the script, you just have to have Python installed, which is also pretty easy, and you can find lots of tutorials online. Feel free to customize it as you want, but as I said, you don't need to know anything about programming to run this, and of course to play Silksong with a 3-player motion controller. If you watch the videos, you probably noticed that as you played more and more, we also started customizing the controls and changing their positions, the sizes, what each rectangle does. This, for example, was the control setup that we had in the end of the third video, and you can see that there's really few rectangles in here because we just simplified the approach. We thought it was easier to play with this simplified control setup. If you go back to this part, for example, you can see the absolute mess. We have even overlapping rectangles and we have like, I don't know, like 15 rectangles in total, and yeah, you can also try customizing the controls as you wish, and it's actually pretty easy because I made some changes to the code, so you can also play the way you want to play. I'm gonna explain a bit how you can do that, but first I'm gonna walk you through the setup, and basically I'm gonna show you all the items that you need to set up all of this. Logically, you need a camera to capture the footage, you need a computer or a laptop to process it and run the code that I'm gonna share with you. Ideally, you need some space to be able to move freely. Ideally, you also need some friends to play it with, but it's not mandatory, I guess. You can customize the controls in such a way that you can basically trigger all of Hornet's actions by yourself. You also need some piece of cloth with a very distinct color. This green cloth, it's actually one of those people use for video effects to remove the background, and I actually got that one from Amazon. If you know what you're doing, you can modify my script to use other color. It's just that other colors can be easily mistaken for the color spectrum that you see in your daily lives. So in the codebase I'm gonna share with you, there's a file called controlsettings.json. This is the file that you need to change to modify the controls. Each line that you see here is one of those rectangles. This first part here is the name of the rectangle that appears, like when you see the screen, like right. And then there's the grid numbers. And the grid numbers are basically coordinates. Whenever you make changes to this file, you have to run something called the grid.py. So you run python grid.py. It gives you this window that shows you the current setup of the controls. And basically you're using those coordinates to create rectangles around the window. The yellow rectangle is contained between the 140 and the 233. But if you were to change that, you can put for the bottom right corner to end on the 234. For example, just have to run it again. Yeah, and now you see that the yellow rectangle is now ending on the 234, just before the 235. And then there's the keys to press here, and that's basically the key that's going to be pressed whenever that rectangle is triggered. For example, if you want to add the sprint key, that in this current setup we don't have the sprint, but if you want to add it, you can just write a new line and you just say sprint. So I believe the sprint key on the keyboard is the C, 322 and 353. And if you run python grid.py again, it generated a new control setup where the sprint rectangle is right here. This is just an example, but this control setup will then overlap the actual camera footage. So we keep the green parts and all the black and all the numbers behind appear, and you have the camera footage. And that's essentially how you add new controls and how you customize things around so you can play with the exact control setup that you wish to play with. And after that, you just have to run the main.py to actually start capturing footage, and that's when the real magic happens. If you haven't watched my friends and I playing Silksong with a 3-player motion controller, I really advise you to, because it's pretty fun and you can also grasp how hard it can be to play Silksong this way. As I have said before, the Silksong videos on this channel are not over, but for now I'm more focused on developing other types of crazy concepts that I also think that you will enjoy. So stay tuned and I'll see you around.